One thing no Buckeye fan expected to happen at the beginning of the year is for Jaxon Smith-Njigba to get hurt in game number 1 and then to miss the second game of the year. Well, Ryan Day recently provided an injury update about Njigba and when he might get back on the field. When will this happen? When could it happen? We'll discuss that today on Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Wednesday, September 14th in the year 2022, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. On today's episode, we discuss how Jim Knowles views Denzel Burke in a word that describes his attitude and mindset about Denzel Burke's play so far this year. And of course, stock up and stock down is back for week 2. But before we get to any of that, Ryan Day recently spoke to the media a day ago, and everybody, myself, you, and those that were at the Woody for the presser are curious about when Jaxon Smith-Njigba will get back on the field. Well, Ryan Day expects Njigba to get back on the field this weekend. Yes, there's an expectation. Ryan Day is hopeful that Jaxon Smith-Njigba will get back on the field this weekend. However, you have to listen to your body, listen to the medical staff, and make sure that Njigba is 100% fully healthy to get back on the field. But Ryan Day had this to say specifically about Njigba and the thoughts and the hopes of getting him back this weekend. The word expect is in this quote. Quote, he's further along in the rehab process than he was at this point a week ago. We're going to expect him to play this weekend. We'll see how this week goes. We'll only put him in there in the game if he's 100% and ready to roll, end quote. That's amazing. Like, I don't need to go any further or try to dive into anything else that he said. That alone is amazing. You're saying that the rehab is there. You want him to be 100% healthy, fully healthy to get on the field. But still, there's an expectation to get him on the field. Now, when he first got hurt, I believe it was a hamstring injury, he ended up coming out and saying he's probably going to miss 2 games. Now, in that time, you have Xavier Johnson, who stepped up in game number 1 against Notre Dame. Emeka Egbuka stepped up against Notre Dame. Marvin Harrison Jr. went off last week against Arkansas State. You're getting this is kind of a blessing in disguise. You never want to have somebody get hurt, but you're finding out who receivers are going to be. If Julian Fleming is hurt, Harrison and Egbuka, you know what they're going to do. Who is going to be the other guy? Xavier Johnson has kind of stepped up in that role. Speaking of Julian Fleming, he missed the most recent game. What did Ryan Day have to say about him? There's still an expectation for Julian Fleming to play this weekend. And Day said this, the progression through the rehab is, quote, very similar, end quote, to Jaxon Smith-Njigba's. So the absence of Fleming is huge. The absence of Njigba is huge. But the possibility and the expectation to get both of them back on the field this weekend is key. Ryan Day also talked about 2 more players that were injured on the Buckeyes, one of them being Jordan Hancock, a second-year cornerback for the team at a position that desperately needs the depth. Jordan Hancock allows them to have that depth there at this position. And Jordan Hancock is someone, would say it's an expectation, but Ryan Day is hopeful that Jordan Hancock will be able to get back on the field this weekend. He also discussed Mike Hall. You remember in the Arkansas State game, Mike Hall Jr. went down, got the wind knocked. He was knocked out of the game, didn't come back in the game, left in the third quarter, had an upper body injury. But Ryan Day says that Mike Hall has passed all evaluations and tests from the medical staff. I didn't assume or think that he was going to be missing any time, but you always have to ask these questions. And Ryan Day knows he needs to have answers for things like this because people want to know about the injury updates about these players. Ryan Day also in his presser discussed some things about some other players on the team, not just in Njigba, Fleming, Mike Hall, Jordan Hancock, the injury situations, but he also discussed some things that he likes about Caden Curry, freshman defensive end, true freshman. He had this to say about this young player, quote, "The more he plays, the more he's going to find a role for himself. He's been productive since he got here," end quote. Jim Knowles raved about him. Ryan Day is going to rave about him. Ryan Day is going to be very wise in his analysis. Larry Johnson's raves about him. They all love Caden Curry. Had a good, phenomenal play. There was one time it was a read option his way. I don't believe it was RPO, just simple read option. And Curry saw that the ball did not get handed off to the running back, and then he didn't stay fixated on the running back. He got off of that man, quickly went to the quarterback, 5-yard loss. These are things you don't normally find true freshmen doing the first time they're on the field in college. Caden Curry, just scratching the surface of being a collegiate athlete. But baby, if that's one play, and if everything we're hearing from the coaches keeps being said, can't wait to see what Caden Curry does in the future. Ryan Day also had something to say about Dallas Gant, former Ohio State linebacker who is now playing for Toledo, who will be in the shoe wearing a Toledo Rockets jersey, playing for Toledo this weekend. Ryan Day says that Dallas Gant and his family were, quote, excellent throughout the recruiting process, end quote, at Ohio State. Day says, quote, "We're all kind of getting used to this transfer portal and how it works," end quote. But even Ryan Day here in this moment, positive things about Gant. And as you'll hear some more tomorrow from Kyle Rowland of the Toledo Blade, as we get a more in-depth look at the Toledo Rockets football team, people don't really say bad things about Dallas Gant right now. Everything's positive, and they're finding positive things to say about this young man. Yes, he entered the transfer portal. Yes, it's an avenue for him to go, to play, and to utilize that thing. But I love hearing about the positive things that Ryan Day and other people are saying about Dallas Gant, the football player. Ryan Day says, quote, "I'm very critical," end quote, about the Buckeyes' play and performance against Arkansas State, as he should be. This is just because it's a cupcake, a team that's a lesser opponent, does not mean you should not be critical about this game, about the most recent game, and about what the team is doing. Ryan Day had this to say about the offensive line, and then we'll close up shop trying to find the exact quote. Ryan Day said the offensive line has a long way to go, but he feels okay about the depth. Honestly, the O-line play that I have seen, and I think you have seen it as well, there are things that the O-line needs to do better in run game. Pass protection has been better. When I went back to rewatch the game, I was pretty impressed with the pass protection that the Buckeyes had. But things can get better. Things need to get better, and Ryan Day knows that. A lot of things need to get better in the run game, and I can't wait to see how those things get better over the next few weeks. Forget the next few weeks. Get better Saturday. It's Toledo. Blow them out of the water. This past Saturday, Denzel Burke got, picked on, was getting a lot of attention from James Blackman, and there were some errors that Burke made. But did those errors, or have those errors changed how the coaches, Jim Knowles and Ryan Day, view Denzel Burke? We'll discuss that next right here on Locked On Buckeyes. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all of the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. I love a good challenge. Buckeye fans always come through when they are challenged, and this one is for you. Help this YouTube channel hit 2,000 subscriptions by the time the Buckeyes kick off with the Wisconsin Badgers on September 24th. Got a few more hours to get this accomplished because that game is in prime time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff on ABC. I believe Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and Holly Rowe will be there broadcasting that game. subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes on the YouTube. It's an easy way to help us accomplish this goal. It's a red letters right there on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. It's a great way to help us reach our goal. Denzel Burke. We highlighted it, talked about it just a day ago, and I'll tell you this right now. He is not in stock up, stock down. There's a couple other things that are going to be highlighted there in the very next segment of the show. Yes, if I didn't talk about Burke yesterday, he would be talked about in that segment. But Burke got picked on last week. There's no other way to describe it. I wouldn't say he got exposed. Like, I wouldn't say that what we saw last week is going to be what we're going to see for the foreseeable future from Denzel Burke. He's too good of a football player. He is way too good at what he does. He did a phenomenal job last year. But however, year two, people have more film on you, and they know your weaknesses very, very well. Well, Denzel Burke last week, James Blackman did a phenomenal job. The coaching staff at Arkansas State did a phenomenal job of really confusing and making things a little bit different for Burke. Burke, so far this year, he's already allowed 151 receiving yards on 12 targets in 2 games this year. Last year, Burke, not Buck. I don't know why I was thinking about Joe Burke. Denzel Burke limited opponents to only 344 yards on 64 targets in 13 games. You see the kind of difference and the issue there. Now, this is according to Pro Football Focus. Burke gave up a 58-yard catch in Game 2 against Arkansas State. Champ Fleming, who was really not just torching Burke, he was messing up and making a lot of Buckeyes miss tackles over the weekend. And you might say, Jay, those numbers are a lot of kind of eye-popping. They're alarming. You're correct. You might be wondering, has that changed how the coaches view Denzel Burke and how he has played? Well, how about I read some quotes from the D coordinator at Ohio State, Jim Knowles, and the head coach at Ohio State, Ryan Day, so you can hear what they think and how they view Denzel Burke right now. Jim Knowles is first. Quote, Denzel is fine. Those guys at corner, they live on an island. It's something that 99.99% of the population could never do. It's a really tough competitive situation. Sometimes you get into a little bit of a slump. You come out, reassess, he went back in and did better. So I think he's on track. When you're in such a high pressure position, you're going to have some ups and downs. And it's really natural. And he's got a great attitude, and we trust him, end quote. That we sticks out there. Because I think I'm just going to go out on a limb, say that we as the coaches and the we as his teammates, they trust Denzel Burke. If you want to look at some of the best corners at Ohio State history, no matter who it is, they have all had a game or two where they weren't up to par. They maybe got exposed. It happens. He's a true sophomore who last year, his true freshman year, played way better than anybody thought he would. You get more film on him, his weaknesses, very similar to a second-year quarterback, C.J. Stroud. These D coordinators know how to attack Stroud, just like these offensive coordinators know how to attack Denzel Burke where he is weak. We trust him. That rings volumes because Denzel Burke knows he knows who the we is. I'm just going to go out on a limb and once again say it's the coaches and his teammates. They trust him, and I think the Buckeye fans should too. Here's what Ryan Day had to say about Denzel Burke. It's very similar to what Jim Knowles had to say about one of the Buckeyes starting corners. Quote, Denzel is very, very talented, and you guys see what he's capable of. I think that he's going to keep working to get better, and he certainly has some plays he wants back. But we're all confident that he will, and he's ready to make those plays. But at the same time, he's got to identify what those things are that got him jammed up on those plays and make the adjustments from there, end quote. The confidence, man. Now, there's more quotes right here I could read from Jim Knowles. Talking about struggles, one play, no big deal. Just the proper mindset you need about these things. I love it, man. Like, I want my coaches to trust me. Now, if I was in Burke's shoes, I would want my coaches to trust me. I would want them to be like, hey, it's one play. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, you're going to get benched, and Burke did get benched on the very next series after he got beat a couple times and some pass interference penalties. Like, he did come out and get benched, and I think he didn't come back for the rest of the first half, if I remember correctly. It's not the end of the world. Imagine if Chase Young a few years ago. This is rare, but imagine if he had a play or two where he got beat and he couldn't get past the tackle. He couldn't do anything. Got pancaked or something like that, or had a couple penalties where he was just like in his head and frustrated. Imagine if he just folded up shop and said, "Hey, for this game, I'm done. For this season, I'm done. I can come into Ohio State next year and do some phenomenal things and not really dwell on what's here and these little hiccups, man, they got me." Imagine if Chase Young did that. A lot of you would be like, "What are you doing, man? You're better than that. That's not how you play at Ohio State. That's not how you play ball. You better man up, and we trust you. We believe in you." A lot of people believe in Zach Harrison in ways where Zach Harrison has not showed you that he should be trusted to do certain things on the football field, but you still trust him. And I think that the trust that the coaches have in Burke, and I think the trust that the teammates have in Burke, I think the trust that we as a collective unit, the fan base, the fans of the Ohio State University should have in Burke, it should be there, man. Like, I'm not going to fall. I love Peyton Manning, been a Peyton Manning fan my whole life. When he was playing for the Colts and then later on for the Broncos before he retired. Peyton Manning had his issues. Peyton Manning wasn't perfect. Peyton Manning wasn't one that was going to win all the playoff games. I think he started off 3-6 in playoff games. That don't mean I didn't trust him. Now I might not trust him to do certain things. I definitely don't want him to run no read option. I definitely don't want him to run no QB draw on 3rd and 5. I don't want that from Peyton Manning. But I do know there are certain things that I can do that he can do to where I trust him to do those things. And also, if he messes up those a pick or two, or sometimes I know he's thrown 3 or 4 interceptions, that's just one game. It's not the end-all, be-all. That's not going to define who Peyton Manning was as a player, or if that happened to Chase Young, who Chase Young was as a player, or Jeff Okudah. If he had a moment like Denzel Burke, that didn't define Jeff Okudah either. These things happen. It's not the end of the world, and I am really, really glad the coaches at Ohio State are happy that they have confidence in Burke, Jim Knowles, Ryan Day, and the other coaches there at The Ohio State University. Stock up, stock down is back. Where are we going to go this week? Last week we had a few more options than we have this week, which gives us more time to dive into who we have on the list today. Who is it? Stock up, stock down? It's coming up next right here on Locked on Buckeyes. Stock up, stock down. Something new that we're starting this year. I believe the second week we're doing this. I don't believe we did it after the Notre Dame game just because it was a shortened week. Didn't have a show on the Labor Day holiday. And so after the Arkansas State game and then before the Arkansas State game and then before the Toledo game, right there on the Wednesday, stock up, stock down is something that's going to be a staple of the podcast at least through this season. See how it goes. We might bring it back again next year. Stock up. This one's easy. Marvin Harrison Jr. Some of y'all that follow me on Twitter, if you do not, you can follow me right now at jstevens07. That is Stevens with a PH. I was out here just tweeting out, stunting like my daddy. Now, I put it up there two of the times he scored a touchdown. Didn't put it on there the first time. But there will be some different things that I'll do to say, hey, like, you got 2 touchdowns, you got 3 touchdowns. Just watch. Because I'll never tweet the same thing twice when it comes to Marvin Harrison Jr. playing like his dad or doing things that maybe his dad could not do. Because, man, the teammates call him Route Man Marv. And Route Man Marv's routes got a whole lot better from game 1 to game 2. He was able to get off the line with nobody touching him. Talked about that a couple days ago, or even yesterday, I believe, about how he's able to get off the line and get a release without using hands, even if sometimes when the defender is a yard and a half away from him, he's able to get off the line, not get any interference from the defender. Next thing you know, he's on top of the route. The defender is not in the muddy, it's not confusing the route. He's actually behind said route. Next thing you know, Marvin Harrison Jr. catches the ball over the middle, utilizes his speed, didn't even have to turn on the jets, just utilizes his speed to get to pay dirt. These are things you expect. And there was someone in the YouTube comments ended up coming up, forget their name, forgive me for that, but they ended up saying, I expect a lot more of these, or we should expect a lot more of these awards for Marvin Harrison Jr. because he is the real deal. Not a direct quote, but that is the thought that was there in that YouTube comment. Go ahead, leave a YouTube comment. I read them. Sometimes I reply to them. You never know what kind of conversation you and I can have, a friendly, healthy back and forth about the Ohio State football team. Stock up on Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, part of this is because Njigba has been out, so somebody needs to step up. Remember last year when the Buckeyes were without their number one receiver, Garrett Wilson, Njigba had 2 15-catch games, one against Nebraska, the other against Utah in the Rose Bowl. Well, this year, when the Buckeyes have been without the number one receiver, the best receiver, first game, not 9 catches from Emeka Egbuka, and Njigba got hurt early in the game. So I still want to say, like, somebody stepped up in the game. Number 2, Harrison Jr. stepped up. Only had 7 receptions, 184 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. Explosive. Stock up also on the defense. Now, this one might alarm you in a good way. The Buckeyes have only allowed 1 touchdown through 2 games. And I believe they're only one of 11 FBS football teams to accomplish that feat this year. And I'm not going to really harp on Jim Knowles once again. Let's praise the players that are on the field. Because last year, everyone blamed Kerry Coombs, defensive coordinators, defensive staff, and say that they're the reason why the defense was bad. Nobody gave credit or said that the players are the ones on the field, and the players are the ones that need to blame for the play on the field because the players just aren't playing well. Like, regardless of what your coach is telling you, if you know your coach is wrong and you know how to fix what your coach is saying, do it. Like, will your coach get mad if you alter and then you go ahead and you end up getting a sack, or you end up getting a tackle for a loss, or you end up stopping a team on 3rd and 1 or 4th and a half yard to go? You stop them there. Do you really think your coach is going to really get upset with you? Yeah, they might get upset a little bit, but eventually they'll be like, "No, I was wrong. You were right. You were right." I think the players weren't really just up to par last year. Lack of experience, whatever you want to call it. They had some seasoned guys out there that just didn't get the job done. Injuries happen. Proctor was out, but whatever you want to say, the guys on the field did not get the job done. The guys on the field this year, they're getting the job done. 1 touchdown, only giving up 1 touchdown in 2 games. Now, they're going up against a Toledo team this coming up weekend. It's only given up 10 points the entire season. The entire season. The Buckeyes gave up, I believe, 10 points to Notre Dame, 12 to Arkansas State. Toledo's only given up 10 points the entire season. We'll learn more about what's going on with this defense at Toledo that's allowed them to accomplish that so far this season. Stock up on Marvin Harrison Jr. Stock up on the entire defense. Those that have been playing on defense have been playing really, really good. That goes from C.J. Hicks and Caden Curry all the way to JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Zach Harrison, Cody Simon, Still Chambers, Tommy Eichenberg, all the guys, Hickman, Proctor, Burke, Brown, McAllister, doesn't matter, even some of the backups. All of them deserve to be praised for how well this defense has played this year. But stock down is on the run game. And this one might be a little bit interesting to you. And this is not only on the players. There's a reason why Henderson and Williams have similar carries, the amount of carries in each game. Now, Henderson has more rushing yards in both games and also has more yards per carry in both games. So there's something there with that. But the run game, I don't know if it's a coach who's not wanting to stick to it. I don't know if it's the O-line and they're blocking. I don't know if it's a lack of trust. I don't know what it is. But the run game needs to be better. And I think primarily it's more stick with the run game. It could just be that simple. Stick with the run game. So with this one, I'm not just going to say one player or 2 players. O-line, running backs, coaches, everybody is involved in the running game at Ohio State. And I am starting to think that this team needs to run the ball more. Run the ball more. It makes things easier for Stroud, makes things easier for these receivers, makes things easier for a lot of people involved. Run the ball more. You want to have a balanced offensive attack, right? 250 on the ground, 250 in the air. You might need to lean on one guy or the other in the backfield instead of kind of having these guys split carry so far through 2 games of the season. No, run the ball more because the run game needs to be better, and it could just simply be running the ball more. We'll see what happens this weekend with the Ohio State running game when they play Toledo under the lights. Yes, another primetime game in the shoe. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Locked on Buckeyes. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can also send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Thanks again for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. And now tap over and make your second listen of the day or watch the Locked on Big Ten podcast. The host, Nate Dickinson, takes you around the conference in 30 minutes every single day with a local expert. Locked on Big Ten and Locked on Buckeyes, they are both free. Wherever you get your fine podcast, the podcast is free on YouTube, both shows, and also on the Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora. Wherever you get your fine podcast, Locked on Buckeyes, Locked on Big Ten, they are there for your daily enjoyment. Out of here on this hump day. Hope you guys enjoy the weather. It's still warm outside. I love this stuff, and I can't wait to see the Buckeyes play in a few days in the shoe.